February 2026. While the world was distracted by political headlines and economic news, the United States just made the single biggest military move of the entire Ukraine war. And Russia? Russia has absolutely no answer for what's coming their way. I'm not talking about a small shipment of weapons. I'm not talking about a few dozen missiles. I'm talking about a complete game changer that will fundamentally alter the balance of power in this conflict. A weapon just completed live fire testing over a year ago in January 2025. The test was a complete success. And what this missile can do, the range it has, the damage it can inflict, it's about to flip the entire war on its head. We're talking about 3,350 of these missiles heading to Ukraine. Let me say that again. 3,350. Each one can travel 400 kilometers. Each one carries 500 pounds of explosive power. And each one costs less than a single luxury car. Putin thought he had the advantage in long-range strikes. He thought Ukraine would never be able to hit back effectively. He was dead wrong. Let me show you exactly why the Russian rear is about to become a kill zone, unlike anything we've seen in this war. Here's what happened that changes everything. Back on February 2nd, 2025, the war zone broke a story that didn't get nearly enough attention. The U.S. Air Force released details of a live fire test that took place on January 21st, 2025. The weapon being tested was called the Rusty Dagger cruise missile, and the result? A complete, unqualified success. Now, let me show you the actual test footage that was released. Watch this carefully. You're seeing the Rusty Dagger missile bearing down vertically on a stationary target. The precision is incredible. And then, boom. The live warhead detonates exactly where it's supposed to. Direct hit. Perfect accuracy. Brigadier General Robert Lyons III, who is America's portfolio acquisition executive for weapons, was quick to praise the successful test, and his words are telling. He said, and I quote, "Moving from a contract to a live fire demonstration in under 2 years proves we can deliver lethal, cost-effective capability at the speed of relevance." Let me break down why that statement is so important. Under 2 years from contract to successful live fire test. In military development terms, that is absolutely lightning speed. Most weapons programs take 5, 10, even 15 years to get from concept to testing. The Rusty Dagger did it in under 2 years. General Lyons continued. He said, "This is how we rebuild our military, by empowering our teams and industry partners to cut through bureaucracy and deliver the tools our warfighters need to prevail." Cut through bureaucracy. That's the key phrase. This weapon was developed fast because it had to be. Ukraine needs it now, not in 5 years. Now, here's where things get interesting. There was some confusion about the exact date of the test. The Air Force says January 21st, 2025, but Defense Express, which is a Ukrainian military analysis outlet, thought there might be a typo. They suggested the test might have happened even more recently than that. Why does the date matter? Because if the Air Force date is correct and nothing has come out to contradict it, we're talking about a missile that was successfully tested over a year ago, back in January 2025. That means whatever modifications, whatever tweaks, whatever final adjustments needed to be made to the Rusty Dagger, they're either already done or they're in the final stages right now as we speak. Right now, it's February 2026. The test was January 2025. That's over a year of additional development time. Ukraine could be getting these missiles very, very soon. We're not talking about months from now. We could be talking about weeks. We could even be talking about days. And when these missiles arrive in Ukraine, everything changes. Okay, so what makes this missile so dangerous that Russia is panicking? Let me break down the specifications that have Russian military planners losing sleep at night. First, let's talk about the warhead. The Rusty Dagger carries a 500-pound warhead. That's 227 kilograms of explosive power. To put that in perspective, that matches the destructive power of the Russian glide bombs that have been terrorizing Ukrainian cities for the past 3 years. We've all seen the footage of entire apartment buildings reduced to rubble by these Russian bombs. The Rusty Dagger can deliver the exact same devastating impact, but now Ukraine can hit back with equal force. Second, let's talk about range. 400 kilometers. That's 248 miles. This is absolutely critical. From Ukrainian-held territory, the Rusty Dagger can reach deep into occupied Crimea. It can hit Russian command centers in Luhansk. It can strike logistics hubs in Donetsk. It can reach airfields that Russia thought were completely safe behind their lines. And here's the kicker. The Rusty Dagger actually has more range than the ATACMS missiles that Ukraine already has. The ATACMS has been incredibly effective, but it's limited in how far it can reach. The Rusty Dagger goes further. Let that sink in for a moment. Third, speed and accuracy. The missile flies at Mach 0.6. That's about 460 miles per hour. Not supersonic, but fast enough to be difficult to intercept. And the accuracy? 10 meters. That's about 32 feet. This missile is so accurate it could theoretically thread through a window if it needed to. When we talk about precision-guided munitions, this is what we mean. But here's what makes the Rusty Dagger truly deadly, and this is where Russian air defense commanders start sweating. Watch the test footage carefully. Pay attention to the engine start. The engine starts without any pyrotechnics. No big flare, no massive heat signature when it launches. This makes it significantly harder for Russian infrared air defense systems to detect the missile in those critical first few seconds after launch. And look at the flight profile. The missile hugs the terrain. It uses the ground itself for navigation. It flies low, really low. Why does that matter so much? Because Russian air defense systems like the S-400 and S-300 are designed to spot high-flying targets. They're optimized for shooting down aircraft and missiles that fly at medium to high altitude. The lower you fly, the later they see you. And by the time Russian air defenses detect a low-flying, terrain-hugging cruise missile, it's often too late to do anything about it. Combine all of these factors: 500 pounds of explosive power, 400 kilometers of range, 10-meter accuracy, low heat signature at launch, terrain-hugging flight profile. This isn't just a good weapon. This is a nightmare for Russian military logistics and command structure. Now here's where this goes from interesting new weapon to absolute strategic game changer that will reshape the entire war. The United States isn't sending Ukraine a few dozen of these missiles. They're not sending 100. They're not even sending 500. They're sending 3,350 extended-range attack munitions. Let me say that number again slowly. 3,350. The contract was signed back in August 2024. The total cost of this deal is $825 million. And here's something really important. European NATO members are funding this purchase. This isn't just the United States helping Ukraine. This is a coordinated NATO effort with European partners putting their money where their mouth is. Now let's do some math together. $825 million divided by 3,350 missiles equals approximately $246,000 per missile. $246,000. Think about that for a second. That's less than a Lamborghini. That's less than a luxury apartment in most major cities. For a cruise missile, compare that cost to traditional cruise missiles. A Tomahawk cruise missile costs about $2 million. A Storm Shadow missile costs over $2 million. The French Scalp missile, similar price range. For the price of one traditional NATO cruise missile, Ukraine can get 8 Rusty Daggers, 8 times the strike capability, 8 different targets, 8 different Russian command posts or logistics hubs or airfields destroyed. The economics alone are devastating for Russia. But let's talk about what 3,350 missiles means strategically. Ukraine can now plan sustained campaign operations, not one-off strikes where they have to carefully husband their limited supply of long-range missiles, not hoping to get permission from Western allies for a single ATACMS shot at a valuable target. We're talking about the ability to hit Russian logistics infrastructure every single night if they want to. Sustained pressure, relentless strikes, the kind of campaign that wears down an enemy's ability to wage war. Look at the map of Russian positions across occupied Ukraine. Every single ammunition depot in occupied territory, and there are dozens of them, is now a legitimate target. Every command post, and Russia has them scattered throughout Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk, is now vulnerable. Every airfield within 400 kilometers, and that includes most of the major Russian air bases in the region, can now be struck. Every logistics hub, every fuel depot, every repair facility, every communication center, all of them are now in range. And here's the beautiful part from Ukraine's perspective. At $246,000 each, if these missiles prove themselves effective in combat, Ukraine can actually afford to buy more with its own defense budget in the future. This isn't a weapon system that's so expensive only the richest countries can afford it. This is an affordable, cost-effective weapon that can be produced in large quantities. The manufacturer, Zone 5 Technologies, could be looking at orders for thousands more missiles. Not just from Ukraine, from every NATO country that watches these missiles perform in combat and realizes they need this capability too. Poland is going to want these. The Baltic states are definitely going to want these. Germany, France, the UK, all of them are going to look at the Rusty Dagger's performance and price point and say, we need thousands of these for our own arsenals. This could become the standard NATO low-cost cruise missile. We could be looking at production runs of tens of thousands of these weapons over the next decade. But first, they have to prove themselves in actual combat. And based on that live fire test from January 2025, based on the specifications we've seen, based on everything we know about this weapon, they're ready to do exactly that. Okay, let's talk about what this actually means on the battlefield. Why is this the single biggest move of the entire war? What makes the Rusty Dagger so important that it deserves that title? For almost 4 years now, Russia has had one massive, overwhelming advantage in this conflict. They can strike anywhere in Ukraine, anytime they want, with relative impunity. Missiles launched from Russia proper, drones launched from occupied territories, strikes on power plants in western Ukraine, strikes on logistics centers, strikes on cities hundreds of kilometers from the front line. Russia has been able to attack Ukraine's rear areas while Ukraine has had very limited ability to strike back. Ukraine has excellent air defenses. The Patriot systems, the NASAMS, the IRIS-T, all of these have been incredibly effective. But you simply cannot stop everything when you're being attacked from multiple directions, simultaneously with hundreds of missiles and drones. Russia launches from Crimea in the south. They launch from Luhansk in the east. They launch from Donetsk. They launch from Russian territory to the north and east. They launch cruise missiles from ships in the Black Sea. Ukraine has been fighting this entire war with one hand tied behind its back, unable to effectively strike back at the Russian rear. Until now, with 3,350 Rusty Daggers, Ukraine can finally hit back at the same scale that Russia has been using against them. Look at what's now in range: Russian command and control centers in occupied territories. These are the facilities coordinating the Russian assaults on Pokrovsk, on Chasiv Yar, on Kupiansk, on all the cities along the front line where fighting is happening right now in February 2026. Airfields. And this is where it gets really interesting. Reports suggest the Rusty Dagger has some degree of penetrative capability. That means it might be able to punch through hardened aircraft hangars. Russian Su-34 fighter bombers and Su-35 fighters that they've been hiding in reinforced shelters, those shelters might not be safe anymore. Supply lines. Russia moves absolutely massive amounts of ammunition, fuel, equipment, everything through occupied territories. Every rail junction, every major highway intersection, every supply depot, every fuel storage facility is now vulnerable to precision strikes. Russian air defense systems themselves become targets. The S-400 and S-300 batteries that Russia uses to protect its rear areas, they're designed to shoot down high-flying aircraft and missiles. Low-flying, terrain-hugging cruise missiles are literally their nightmare scenario. Russian air defense operators are going to have minutes, maybe even just seconds to react when they finally detect a Rusty Dagger on their radar screens. But here's the real strategic impact that military analysts are focusing on. Every Russian command post that gets destroyed causes confusion and chaos on the front line. Every ammunition depot that gets blown up means fewer artillery shells landing on Ukrainian positions. Every fuel depot that goes up in flames means fewer Russian tanks and armored vehicles available for offensive operations. This isn't just about destroying stuff in the Russian rear. This is about degrading Russia's ability to conduct offensive operations along the entire front line. And if Ukraine gets permission to use these missiles inside Russia proper, not just in occupied Ukrainian territory, then we're talking about strikes on Russian oil refineries, strikes on military production facilities, strikes on the military-industrial complex that keeps Putin's entire war machine running. This isn't just about new weapons, this is about achieving parity. For 3 years, Russia has been able to strike deep into Ukraine while Ukraine couldn't effectively respond. Now Ukraine can strike deep too. And that fundamental shift changes everything about how this war is fought. But there is a catch here, and it's a significant one that we need to talk about honestly. Remember those ATACMS missiles I mentioned earlier? Ukraine received them from the United States. They're powerful, effective weapons. But there was a problem that nobody talked about publicly until 2025. The Wall Street Journal revealed that the Pentagon had been quietly, secretly blocking Ukraine from using ATACMS inside Russian territory for most of 2024 and into 2025. They created what they called a review mechanism. Essentially, Ukraine had to ask for permission every single time they wanted to strike a target inside Russia with ATACMS missiles. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had final approval authority on whether each individual request was approved or denied. Now, Ukraine did eventually get permission to use ATACMS inside Russia. In November 2024, they were finally cleared to strike military targets across the border. They launched strikes. It made international headlines. But the key point here is that there were restrictions. There was bureaucracy. There were delays. There was a permission process. So the obvious question is, will the Rusty Dagger face the same restrictions? Based on reporting, it seems like Ukraine can use ATACMS and likely the Rusty Dagger in occupied Ukrainian territory without needing special permission for each strike. Hitting Russian positions in Crimea? Good to go. Striking command posts in Donetsk or Luhansk? No problem. But inside Russia proper? Inside actual Russian territory? That's where it gets politically complicated. And this matters because arguably, the best targets for the Rusty Dagger are inside Russia itself. Oil refineries that provide fuel for the war effort, military production facilities manufacturing artillery shells and weapons, military bases deep inside Russian territory. Will Ukraine need to request permission for each of these strikes? Will there be another review mechanism? We honestly don't know yet. But here's what we do know for certain. Even if the Rusty Dagger is restricted only to occupied Ukrainian territories, 3,350 missiles with 400-kilometer range and 500-pound warheads will absolutely devastate Russian logistics infrastructure and command structures in Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk. And occupied Ukraine is what military people call a target-rich environment. Ukraine is not going to run out of valuable targets to hit anytime soon. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention in war coverage. The economics of this deal. The financial aspects that make this such a smart move. Ukraine is in a very tough financial position right now in February 2026. They have over $213 billion in total government debt. Their debt to GDP ratio is hovering around 100%. This is a country that's fighting for its very survival, while simultaneously drowning in massive war debt. Every single dollar matters when you're in that situation. Every weapon system has to justify its cost. You can't afford to waste money on ineffective or overpriced equipment. $246,000 per cruise missile. That's not just cheap by military standards, that's revolutionary. That's a complete paradigm shift in how we think about long-range strike weapons. Standard NATO cruise missiles cost millions each. Storm Shadow, over $2 million. Tomahawk, approximately $2 million. The French Scalp missile, similar pricing. For the price of one traditional cruise missile, Ukraine gets 8 Rusty Daggers, 8 times the strike capability, 8 different targets destroyed instead of 1. But here's the really intelligent part of this entire deal. This isn't just the United States helping Ukraine. This is genuine US-European cooperation and partnership. European NATO members funded this $825 million contract. That's Germany, France, Poland, the Baltic states, and others pooling their resources together to give Ukraine a weapon specifically designed for its military needs. Putin never expected this level of sustained cooperation. He thought NATO would fragment over time. He thought European support would fade. He thought he could simply outlast Western assistance to Ukraine. Instead, NATO created an entire supply chain for low-cost, highly effective cruise missiles built specifically to damage and degrade Russia's war effort. And the manufacturer, Zone 5 Technologies, is now positioned to become the primary supplier for NATO's low-cost cruise missile needs going forward. This is what modern defense cooperation looks like in 2026. So let's zoom all the way out and look at the bigger strategic picture. Why is this truly the single biggest move of the entire war? For almost 4 years, Russia has been able to launch massive coordinated missile and drone strikes against Ukraine. Ukraine has fought back brilliantly with air defenses. But you cannot win a war only by playing defense. You have to be able to strike back. Now Ukraine is rapidly building a substantial arsenal of offensive strike weapons. The Rusty Dagger joins Ukrainian-made Neptune missiles, long-range drones, and other systems that are currently in development. Imagine Ukraine launching a coordinated strike with 50 Rusty Daggers, 30 long-range drones, and 20 Neptune missiles, all simultaneously hitting different targets across occupied territories. Russian air defenses would be completely overwhelmed. They physically cannot stop everything. And whatever gets through their defenses causes catastrophic damage to logistics networks, command structures, and military infrastructure. This is Putin's absolute nightmare scenario. He built his entire invasion strategy around the core assumption that he could strike Ukraine's rear areas with impunity, while Ukraine couldn't effectively hit back. That assumption just died in a test explosion on a military range in Florida back in January 2025. Ukraine is approaching parity in long-range strike capabilities. Not superiority, but parity. And in modern warfare, parity means Russia can't simply bludgeon its way to victory through overwhelming firepower anymore. The Rusty Dagger completed successful testing over a year ago. Production of 3,350 missiles is underway right now. Delivery to Ukraine could happen at any time. Very soon, the Russian rear won't be safe anymore, and there's absolutely nothing Russia can do to stop what's coming. Subscribe to Redline USA. Thanks for watching.